Hello and welcome to Game Soup with Kayla and Chloe. This is a game design podcast where we throw ideas in a pot and see what's cooking. How are you doing today, Chloe?
It is ever, but I'm getting used to it. How are you, Kayla?
I'm good. This is a chronic fatigue podcast.
We call it game soup because it's what we eat to get our energy back.
We've talked before on the podcast. I think maybe after about a month or two of doing it, I revealed I don't like soup, and you were scandalized.
It's okay. I don't think I've ever had game soup, so.
No, because I don't eat soup or meat, I did not actually know it was a real thing. I was just referencing a poem I liked called Girl Soup.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know that, so we're all learning things today, guys.
Look it up, or listeners, if you want to check it out. I first found it because when I was doing my teacher training long ago, before I realized I was unfit for work, I was trying to do a module on like poetry and gender, so that was one of the poems I suggested for that. I don't think I actually got around to teaching it. It was going to be like 3 or so weeks. I planned the lesson for about 3 weeks ahead or whatever. And then the pandemic happened and school shut down. When I got told to, like, I had to sign off because someone I lived with had a fever, which, the testing wasn't widely available then, but that was enough. But at that time, I'd left a bagel in my locker. So I just sent an email being like, you need to... This was like in the week before the school was getting shut down, but you could kind of tell it was about to happen, purely just because of unavailable staff. I was like, someone needs to do something about this bagel I've left there.
Oh, when you come back in September, there will be a biohazard there.
Yeah. On the 9th of May, which is not this weekend, but is next week, I'm going to be at the Priory Shopping Centre in Dartford selling books and zines as part of a little indie market there.
Nice.
So if you're, around southeast London or Kent, this is convenient for me. Dartford is just the edge of where my Freedom Pass free train covers me.
Oh, well. She doesn't go to cons any further out.
I do, but that's the thing. It's like a con within the London range.
It's so much nicer,
the Freedom Pass range. Yeah, it makes it so much more low stakes in terms of, like, it doesn't take much for this to be successful. This thing is a bit of an experiment. I had to get like public liability insurance for it, so there's like an amount I should make.
I've been to cons before, and they're like, you need to get public liability insurance, blah blah blah, and it's like they never check it on the door.
In this case, they did ask me to send over a certificate, so I did need to get it. But yeah, no, I mean, like, because I often needed public liability insurance when doing like stand-up shows. So one way of getting it then was if you were a member of Equity, you were entitled to like the union's public liability insurance. But there's not real. I don't believe the closest equivalent union for like game workers or stuff does that. So you have to buy it separately. But like there was also a case in stand-up where I could just be like, oh, I'll waive that. I'll be liable. Which is, maybe it's a risky thing to do if anything does go wrong, but it's potentially a risk you feel comfortable making if you were doing very basic stand-up. But in this case, they needed a certificate, so I got like a 1-day thing. If this is a sort of monthly event, so if this turned out to be profitable enough that I was like, oh, I'd love to keep coming back and doing this, because there are also some other conventions that ask for it, maybe I'd look at getting some kind of actual subscription. At the moment, it's just not worth it. But anyway, I'll be in Dartford on the 9th. Come say hi. But also that raises up a question, because amongst all the new stuff I'll have, like the Gallant and the Virtuous and the anthologies, I'll have Psychodungeon there. This is the second print run of Psychodungeon, which is mainly identical to the first, which came out of the Kickstarter. I just like updated a logo, added some testimonials to the back cover, and there's like, I think, a single line tweak in a playbook. I'm down to maybe about like 20 copies of this, because this second print run was quite a short one. I feel plausibly I maybe only got like 50 copies. Perhaps, potentially I did 100. I honestly can't remember. I think maybe I got a small amount because I was needed to order new stock at the point I was going to be moving house.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, it will technically come boxed up, but it would be an awkward moment for it. I can't remember. Either way.
Yeah.
Plausibly, I'm going to sell out of this second printing before the end of the year, so I'm left with a decision of, do I want to do a third print run of Psychodungeon as it is, or when it runs through, would I want to consider doing a new edition of the game?
Yeah. I mean, we've
Sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I was going to answer what I thought was going to be a question. We've considered doing second editions or updated editions of like Goblin Country to like fold in Kobold Country into the single book. So it'd be like both the games in one book, and every time we throw the idea around, it's like, oh well, we should add another group of things. So it's like a standalone upgrade thing, whatever. But then it's like so many extra steps. It just feels like, I don't know, like if it sells well enough as it is, and it's not, if you don't think like the extra labor would increase the amount of sales, then is it needed?
That's the thing. I think like Psychodungeon is a game I am very happy with as it is. It does feel, there are definitely things I can look back on and go, oh, I would probably tweak this, or I'd think a lot deeper about this, or I'd test X, Y, Z, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not an obvious game like, say, the transition from the Infinite Dance Floor to Caught in the Remix was very much motivated by a big, there's loads I do differently and I know what those things would be. The thing with Psychodungeon as it is an 80-page paperback, which sells for £20. If it was a bigger book, it could sell for more money. If it was a, even just like 40-page bigger book, it could probably go to a hardback and sell at 30. So there's definitely a thing of like, and I plausibly am someone, we'll have a hardback on convention stuff soon, me and Laurie, because MechRitter will be hardback. But otherwise it's like, my usual products are quite cheap, which is a useful thing in certain respects, but does set a kind of limit on how much a certain amount of sales is going to make you. So there's a temptation from that angle. There's also a thing, Psychodungeon like mentions so many possibilities, but then leaves lots of stuff sort of just like alluded to. There's definitely a sense that I could go like more in depth on stuff.
Give me an example.
My question was actually going to be, have you read Psychodungeon?
Not in several years.
You remember the broad strokes of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the premise, and then like the way the game works is it has its 7 playbooks, it has a dungeon and a client play sheet, and it various dungeon textures. There was stuff actually when I did the Kickstarter that was like all of the stretch goals were writing based things. So I'm like, oh, were there any of those? One thing that Psychodungeon doesn't have that would be a sort of, I guess, obvious boost to it would be if it came with some kind of I was going to say
dungeon and client. Pre-written, client, or like a couple of clients, like a little story or something.
I could do like a handful of them, then it's like, cool, Psychodungeon as is and some adventures, and that's definitely big enough that it's both an expansion folded into a new edition or whatever.
I think,
but there's obviously... Oh, wait, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, a full new edition, I feel like, requires, like, a full rewrite of all of the bits of it. Like, even if you're happy with a lot of it, it's like, oh, well, what's changed about each of the player books, whatever. And you've added this extra thing, whatever. But otherwise, it feels like, oh, it's the updated edition, or it's got the expanded content on it, or whatever. Like, we've done some rule changes, but it's like, what is the difference between it's a full remake as the new edition to it's the better it's just a better version of the existing version? It's like, why couldn't I just give that version to existing, like, owners of the PDF or whatever, and then, like, oh yeah, I'll just add £5 to the price of it and just call it Psychodungeon Expanded or whatever, rather than Psychodungeon 2.
I don't think I'd call it Psychodungeon 2 for whatever it's worth.
What I mean. Second edition or whatever.
But I don't think I'd bother with an edition label. I plausibly might call this. I think an obvious fun title would be something like Psychodungeon Burnout Edition or whatever. Yeah. Psychodungeon Burnout. But I feel like doing some kind of hard edition line. I'm not convinced it would be useful for the way I sell my books. But, like, yeah, obviously a question there is this an expansion to Psychodungeon?
Yeah.
Which probably on digital stuff I'd sell as its own separate PDF.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the physical thing would be a new print run that has Psychodungeon and its expansion. That's a world where, like, the only change I make is adding, say, an amount of pre-written adventures and characters.
Yeah.
But like I said, the stuff. One thing that I think is very, because Psychodungeon has elements where it being like a belonging outside belonging derived game where you're building a lot of the setting yourself. A book that did more to help someone out with what the setting is would obviously get bigger and obviously would justify this sort of increase. Psychodungeon is very open in terms of, like, what is the structure of a Psycho Plumber working environment, because there's an assumption that players will bring their experience of work and how they think work works to the game. But, like, so, like, something that could go more detailed in that way. Questions of stuff I tweak, you know. I think there's an easy thing of, like, looking back over all of the playbooks, seeing if they're all putting in the same direction. And I guess there's a question of, like, I'd probably look more closely at the dungeon delving procedure and see what I wanted to do. I think if I was, like, very serious about this, if I was like, yes, I am committed to wanting to explore more with Psychodungeon, it would probably be a case of I'd start writing and then I'd see what form it takes. If it makes enough major changes to the core book, it probably needs to be a new edition. If it makes enough small ones, it's an expansion that is sold digitally and folded into a new print run that is a bigger book.
And then, like, like, guidance or whatever you could just put in a PDF update or whatever. Yeah.
Then, but, like, that would obviously, depend on, like, what changes are made, what do I see as is necessary.
Yeah.
There's a question here of, like, is this something I'm choosing to take to Kickstarter or not? Which would also be, like, probably having to write it and then see what shape that is. Yeah. I think if I wanted to print a hardcover book, I probably need to go to Kickstarter in some sense, but the other thing I was going to say is there's also, like, lots of possibilities in the world of Psychodungeon that are a bit away from, like, what a Psychodungeon game is, which is maybe a project involves rounding it out in different ways. Like, you know, mentioned in Psychodungeon is the idea that, like, people used to have Psychodungeon plumbing entitlement as, like, a public service. Then it became privatized and you need insurance for accessing through charity. Or sometimes there's this mentioned possibility of, or you're handling it yourself. So I'm like, oh, is there an interesting version? Is there a small self-contained version of the game where it's like unlicensed Psycho Plumbers, where it's you've got some mates who are trying to help you out as you, like, that's a version where I'm like, oh, exploring a side game, maybe like this is how it becomes bigger in that way.
Yeah, that could be like a fun, like, Session Zero funnel or something.
Yeah, I don't know if funnel would be the...
No,
but
I
I
know,
get...
but
Yeah.
it like
Some kind of,
establishes
like,
two
character
characters,
creation
and then
thing.
like you skipped forward and you're doing it professionally or whatever.
Yeah, I think like there's that's why I'm like, oh, there's lots of stuff maybe about the world which you could go more in depth on. Maybe that essentially would involve a lot of sort of play sets, like which lock in more specifics and give you more written characters on the Psycho Plumber side as well as a client side.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting thing, which, yeah, once again, maybe that's an expansion, maybe that's...
So you'd be thinking about
A new
like
edition.
leaning more, here is some pre-generated characters is more capsule gamey than it is create your own guys.
Yeah, maybe it would be a thing of like, here's, you know, the big loose version of Psychodungeon, where it involves a lot of like setup. Here's then various
Yeah.
self-contained iterations of the game, which are, I guess, halfway between like scenarios and self-contained capsule games, with the level of like scripted characters along the sides of like Lady Blackbird or
Yeah.
Yazabas or something. This is the thing, I'm just really like throwing out ideas because I guess I'm at this point having finished two big projects where I'm like, I want something to occupy my attention,
Yeah.
but I don't know what that yet will be.
I think the capsule gamey idea could be like a fun little spin-off that you could like then sell as like a bundle at like cons or whatever with like the full games. Like, oh, it's Psychodungeon unlicensed or whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely like a thing if I say wanted to then do it as, say, box set or like paperbacks
I
in a
think like
slipcase
the
or something.
capsule game version of it would be like a spin-off rather than like the main thing, because like I do like the concept of making your own guys, and it's like, oh, so this is maybe like the introductory version, like how Dai's doing that demo cards thing with their new Kickstarter.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. But part of me is just like, yeah, but you could just have that at the back
Yeah,
of a single book.
I think if you were adding that whole extra game mode, that's a second edition to me.
That makes sense. I feel the thing, I'm not sure I care so much, or it's that important to decide whether this is a second edition
it
or an
doesn't matter at all.
expansion up
It's just-
front. The eventual point it would matter is if I'm like, do I sell any kind of separate version of this with just the expansion stuff? If I don't, like, but you know, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I just like granularity. I I like.
Do you feel like your games are very granular? I was going to say.
No, they're all narrativist, but me saying that they are narrativist feels granular to me, so...
Yeah, you like specificity of terms.
Yes, I like a label. I like a proper noun with a capital letter at the start.
Do you have anything you wanted to talk about? Otherwise, I had a soft idea we could bounce around.
Well, now all I can think about is your soft idea, so hit me with it.
Well, I just once again saw there's like another trailer for the Nicolas Cage starring Miller and Lord film TV show Spider Noir. Which is Spider-Man as a noir detective. I was wondering, like, less about that. Is there anything maybe in this about some kind of like superhero genre mashup thing?
Give me an example, because I don't quite follow what you mean.
Well, like, superhero noir is one. I suppose you could also do, like, superhero murder mystery, which is a related but not exactly narrating.
I'm thinking of the Neil Gaiman 16 or whatever, where they put the Marvel superheroes in the medieval or whatever.
Yeah, 17th century.
Yeah.
I think a bit after medieval, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of those, like Elseworld, I guess all DC Elseworlds, like Gotham by Gaslight.
Yeah.
Those things are all that. Or maybe I'm like, or is there something more specific in doing noir superhero mashup. If we want to go on the Spider noir thing.
My brain's like, oh, what's Batman noir? And it's like, that's Batman.
Obviously, I guess like the interesting thing from the trailers is it seems like they've, he is a noir style PI as well as a superhero or a former superhero or something. It sounds like being a superhero is his like tragic backstory in the way that like a war is for other noir PIs.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of the weird Dixon Hill episodes of Star Trek now where Picard pretends to be a PI on the holodeck. What if he was just a starship captain who got lost on a planet and had to be a detective?
Actually, maybe that's
yeah, it's like, oh,
no, maybe less starship captain. Maybe what if you're an alien? Yeah. Like this is kind of Martian Manhunter's backstory, but what if he then just has to fall into a noir thing?
It's like I need to survive on this planet long enough, and I can use my extrasensory abilities to, solve people's issues. And
but also maybe like then maybe it's like you and maybe whatever's stranded you on the planet has also stranded other aliens or stuff.
Yeah.
And in the crimes you're having to make sure you cover up any influence. I feel it's kind of like X-Files crossed with alien noir.
Yeah. I could see a version of this where it's like, oh, you're psychic detectives, but that's just Mob Psycho, but I kind of like that.
I think being a psychic detective is a very hard thing to do in a game.
Yeah.
In terms of how do you make this challenging.
Yeah. But yeah, like an alien like doing X-Files stuff is kind of fun.
Do you like the Martian Manhunter, John Jones? You a fan?
I know he's green and was in the old cartoons.
He's a shapeshifter. He is also psychic.
He's weak to fire. That's all I know. I've seen bits of Young Justice. He's in that.
Yeah. Like shapeshifters may be a fun angle.
Yeah, so you can
actually shapeshifting Private Eye, who is a stranded alien, is I think a great hook.
Yeah, maybe you have a bunch of different types. Like you have the big grey head who has like psychic abilities, or like the shape-shifting Martian or whatever.
I feel for this as a PI game, this would probably work best as a 2-player game.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which also works for a character. If you're a stranded alien, I think it's best if you are a bit isolated, which then also works for a noir-esque thing, because that's all about alienation.
You did it. We did it.
Yeah.
See, my brain is going to, and you could use this, anyone can use this, and it's just because we've got capsule games on the brain, but capsule game where you have one reoccurring character between a bunch of different settings. So it's like, today the detective is investigating the nightclub, and you have a bunch of like pre-written characters of the nightclub boss, the waitress, the bartender, whatever. And then you can transplant your detective into these different settings.
Was like one
episodes of
it's related but not exactly the same. So I think we talked quite a few times about this, about like that sci-fi noir idea I was trying.
Yeah.
That I then ended up parking partly because I got stuck on I mainly got stuck on the question of like, who are the player characters? What is the player count? And stuff I could never quite figure out a way that felt satisfying to me enough. I don't know. And I guess I got distracted by other projects. But one thing I thought about at one time was like, I'd write a series of like episodes or mysteries or whatever.
Yeah.
You are creating a character who's the investigator, but everyone else just chooses a specific pre-written thing from a scenario, whether that makes them like the femme fatale, the killer or something.
Yeah.
That felt like a thing where it's like interesting because all of the people who play pre-written characters, they're kind of placed into a soft GM position.
Exactly.
Especially because it's like any character who isn't claimed by a player would just be taken by the GM. I think there's something interesting there, but I couldn't. exactly figure out how to make it work. But I don't know, maybe I'll revive some of those ideas if I pursue the Martian Manhunter.
That's how we do
Sure.
it. That's how we fixed your sci-fi noir game. You are just Martian Manhunter John Jones.
Well, maybe like there's a thing. Oh, the other big problem I had was setting stuff, of me going like, oh, so much stuff about the setting needs to be like hard coded in for things like, you know, what are the parameters of an investigation? Like in a sci-fi setting or in any kind of fictional setting, it's stuff like, okay, does CCTV exist? Is what kind of forensics exists? How reliable or accessible are either of those things? And like that all needs to be hard set, and then it's a question of like, okay, how do you then mark out what's all of the detail that can be more like flavor? How do you then convey all of that in a way that's not just info dumping? So maybe the fact of a character being an alien and their backstory getting to be all the sci-fi stuff, but then placing them in a broadly real world historical period or whatever. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know.
Thank you for listening to Game Soup.
Bye.